Okay, so I'm in my last couple of days driving coaches and I've got some time on my hands, so I thought I'd do a little video about driving etiquette and how you can sometimes get yourself into arguments with other people on the road or annoy other people simply because you haven't been taught the correct etiquette. Now, a lot of this stuff isn't written down anywhere. You can't find it in the highway code. You're kind of dependent on your driving instructor teaching you this when you learn to drive, and if they haven't taught you it, well, then you probably would never learn it, and you might well be mystified as to why people get angry with you. But let me just explain some of the things that you might be doing wrong. So, first thing we're going to start off with is car park etiquette. Now, when you go into a car park, it's not rocket science that the car in front of you might need to reverse into a parking space, and what people tend to do is go into car park, and because they're eager to park as quickly as possible and get out, they go bumper to bumper with the car in front. Of course, as the car in front's going along, they find a space, they want to reverse into it, and they can't do that because you pulled right up behind them. Now, that is a pretty stupid thing to do. When you're in a car park, hold well back, at least a car length, to allow the car in front of you to reverse. What you should do, if you want to stop this happening to you and the car behind you is too close, is when you find a parking space, put your hazard lights on, dab your brake pedal to show them what you're intending to do. You could even just briefly engage reverse gear. Then keep your hazard lights on, go forward and steer as if you're going to reverse into the parking space. That should give the car behind you enough of a hint as to what you're doing, and hopefully they will stay where they are and allow you enough room to reverse into the parking space. And it's always better to reverse into parking spaces. That way, when it comes to leaving, you can just drive straight out. Part of the problems in multi-storey car parks and even surface car parks is when cars drive into those spaces and time for them to go home, they have to reverse out, and that causes everything to slow down as cars have to give them more time to get out. Yellow box junction etiquette. Okay, so imagine you're driving along a busy road like the Marylebone Road. It's got 3 lanes, and you're driving not your car, but you're driving an articulated lorry or a 15-metre coach. Now, you can imagine how difficult it is for drivers of those vehicles to have to plan when to go into the yellow box junction, because they need to be able to clear it and get through it without any part of the vehicle stationary, otherwise they'll get a ticket. So it happens a lot where I'm waiting at a yellow box junction, I see the traffic in front start to move, and cars on either side of me, they see the gap developing in front of me, so what they do is they actually accelerate and nip into my lane and nick my space. Now, if I've started to move and the gap that I've kept for myself suddenly becomes, it's not vacant anymore, it's been taken by another vehicle, I'm going to get pretty angry, because the cars to my left or cars to my right, they should wait for a gap in their lane, not wait until my lane suddenly develops a gap, and then as I move forwards to go into that gap, they come across and they steal it. That's pretty annoying. And if you've done that to somebody else, well, good luck. If they get angry with you, now you know why. Okay, slip roads onto motorways and dual carriageways. The etiquette is the vehicle coming onto the motorway increases its speed to that of the flow of traffic on the motorway, and then ideally accelerates into a gap. But if you're on the motorway, especially if you're driving in lane 1, the etiquette is to leave enough room between you and the car in front, so say around 5 or 6 seconds gap, to allow vehicles to merge onto the motorway. In this country, we what call zip merge. So, for example, if you imagine the teeth on a zip, when the zip closes, you get one tooth from either side. In the same way, when cars merge onto motorways and dual carriageways, we tend to zip merge. So, if you're driving along lane 1, you need to leave a reasonable gap for a car to come out and merge in front of you. But again, if you're the car that's approaching on the slip road, you need to be up to motorway speeds, not crawling along at 40 miles an hour trying to merge. You need to be up to speed with the flow of traffic. Right, pedestrian crossings. Now this is a little bit of etiquette for pedestrians themselves. When you're crossing the road, you need to wait until the vehicles stop at a zebra crossing for you. You should not be walking out forcing vehicles to stop like a lot of pedestrians do. The rule is, if the vehicle is in the hazard area, i.e. the car approaching or the vehicle approaching is in the zigzag lines, the pedestrian should not cross until that vehicle has come to a stop and then, and only then, is it safe for the pedestrian to commence crossing. But obviously people aren't taught that, and people will just tend to walk out in front of you if you're doing 30 miles an hour and not really care at all. As a driver, you should be coming off the gas well before the zigzag lines and being prepared to stop, scanning quite wide into the footpath on either side, looking for children that might be running across, or cyclists that might decide to ride across the road. But remember, as a pedestrian, you should wait for the vehicles to stop before you cross. Large vehicle blind spots. Well, in some of my other videos, you'll see the mirror arrangements we have on these coaches. We've actually got 5 mirrors on the right hand side and 3 on the left to give us a good field of vision. But unfortunately, we still have blind spots, and there's nothing you can do about it in a vehicle of this size. Cyclists and car drivers tend to sit in your blind spots, and that's really irritating. If you're driving an articulated lorry, when you start to turn, the cab and the trailer go out of alignment, and you can virtually see nothing in those mirrors. So, you know, if a cyclist decides to come up the inside of you while you're turning left in their infinite wisdom, you know, they're going to get what they deserve, because you've positioned yourself, you've indicated, you've started to turn, and then you get some idiot in a cycle tries to pass you on the left-hand side. I mean, what do they think they're doing? You know, these vehicles, it's hard to see, especially in nighttime, because at nighttime, as you can see, these very small mirrors give you a wide angle, but they make it almost impossible to see small objects like cyclists. And as a car driver or a cyclist, you need to be holding well back and not sitting in our blind spots. The next thing is roundabout etiquette. When you come up to a roundabout, you were taught to look to the right and give way to the right. Well, there's a little bit more to it than that. Sometimes large vehicles or even vulnerable road users like cyclists can struggle on a roundabout, especially if it's uphill. And although you approach the roundabout and you look to your right, you should also be looking to your left. And if you can see a vehicle on your left has started to pull out, give way to them. Don't rush up to the roundabout and expect them to see you and just suddenly jam their brakes on. Roundabouts work because people use a little bit of compromise, a little bit of give and take. So it doesn't really matter whether you've got priority or not. It's all about, not the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law. We've all got to bring our speed down to make it easy for large vehicles and cyclists to get onto the roundabout. At the same time, if you're the one who's emerging onto the roundabout, be aware that vehicles on the roundabout will think they've got priority, and they have got priority in the eyes of the law. But understand that, you need to make sure it's safe. Sometimes when you're driving a large vehicle or even a cycle, you can wait at a roundabout for a long, long time. And sometimes some drivers are sympathetic and they'll see that you're waiting to emerge, and they will slow down for you or even stop on a roundabout to let you out. That's very thoughtful. Sometimes it's dangerous when they do that, but sometimes there's no other way. If you're driving an articulated lorry or an oversized load, for example, you can wait for a very long time. So please remember, don't just rush up to a roundabout and just zoom straight onto it because you think you've got priority. Think about other vehicles who are struggling. Pulling out and stopping. Now, another sort of etiquette is when you pull out from a side road onto a main road, if a vehicle flashes you out or you decide to pull out in front of a vehicle, make sure you get your foot down and get on with it, because there's nothing worse than pulling out in front of somebody and then slowing them down. I had a situation this morning where an Uber driver decided to pull out in front of me. He had his right indicator on. He pulled out onto the main road, and as soon as he pulled out, he decided to brake and turn right again. So he almost literally did a U-turn. Now, when I saw him pull out, I expected him to pull out, so I slowed down a little bit. But then when he decided to jam his brakes and stop in front of me, that was really unexpected, and that's not very good etiquette. Reverse parking etiquette. Right. When you're reverse parking, much like a multi-story car park, you need to think about the traffic behind you. They may not realise you're trying to reverse park. So again, the way to do that is pull up parallel to the parking space, put your hazard lights on. You can even dab it into reverse gear just for a second, just to show them what you're attempting to do. Then pull forwards and then reverse into the parking space. If you're the following vehicle and you see somebody in front of you trying to reverse into a parking space, hold well back. You may not have been taught this when you're learning to drive, but when somebody's doing a difficult manoeuvre, the more room you give them, the quicker they will execute that manoeuvre,